The U.S. Justice Department is asking sheriffs across California counties to hand over lists of jail inmates who are not U.S. citizens, along with their crimes and release dates. Federal officials say it's part of a push to deport undocumented immigrants with criminal records. And late this afternoon, LA County Sheriff Robert Luna responded.
The department does not ask, nor does it possess any information about citizenship for the status of individuals in our custody. I just want to reemphasize that.
Now, Luna says he has not actually received the DOJ's request, at least at the time of that press conference. He hadn't had it yet, but he says his department follows state law and county policy, which prohibits local law enforcement from cooperating with federal immigration officials, except under specific and lawful circumstances. For more, let's bring in legal analyst Jessica Levinson. Good to have you. Thank you for being with us tonight. So the Sheriff's Department, it does cooperate with ICE on a limited basis. This is only if they are served a federal judicial warrant signed by a federal judge. So if the Sheriff's Department doesn't cooperate, which Luna says we're not going to cooperate with you, we don't have this information anyway, the DOJ says it may issue a subpoena. Does this force the sheriff's hand?
I don't think it does. And you laid this out really clearly in terms of what power all the players have. So the federal government has the power to enforce federal law. And to the extent that federal law conflicts with state law, we know that federal law wins. But what's happening in this case is that the federal government seems to be requesting, which is okay, but not mandating, which is not okay, that local law enforcement essentially help them carry out their federal law enforcement duties. So regardless of whether or not California is a sanctuary state, and of course we are, and we have been, I think, since 2018, under the 10th Amendment, the federal government can't say to the state, here's a federal law or policy or program, now you must help us carry it out. It has to be you may. And so that's where the request part comes in. And then, of course, separately, we have this issue of California being a sanctuary state. So there's a question of, even if California law enforcement officers did turn over information, would they then be, even if they did so voluntarily, would they then potentially be in violation of state sanctuary laws?
So just to clarify and make this as simple as possible in terms of understanding this, the subpoena that they are saying they will probably issue, that's really an empty threat then?
So thank you for bringing me back after all that. Yes, so the answer is you can issue a subpoena, but if it's invalid, then it has no force. And the federal government, unless, as you said before, unless it's a federal judicial subpoena, the federal government cannot say, okay, LAPD, or okay, Sheriff's Department, now go help us get this information. That's not possible under the 10th Amendment.
And then in that soundbite we played from Sheriff Luna, he says that they don't even have the immigration status of the inmates anyway. So doesn't that negate the request in the first place?
Well, I certainly think that it means that the response is we don't have anything to give you. Even if in some hypothetical world we were required to give you that information, we don't have it. Now, I think there are other sheriff's departments in California and other jurisdictions where they might have that information. But this Q&A for Sheriff Luna and the Department of Justice is going to be pretty quick, which is we don't have that information.
Okay, so, and by the way, here in LA County, the sheriff says that all information that they do have is publicly available on the Sheriff's Department website in terms of release date, crime, etc., day that they were detained. You mentioned other sheriffs may have this information. Can they share that information with the DOJ?
I know everybody hates it when I say this. It depends. It depends if they want to. They can't be forced to. If they want to provide this information, then we need to look to see if there's an applicable local or state law that would essentially prevent them from assisting. Again, we look to whether or not there's a sanctuary city or a sanctuary state. As we've been discussing, Los Angeles not in that position because the information, according to the sheriff, either is not gathered or is publicly available.
All right, very good. Loyola Law School professor Jessica Levinson, thank you for breaking it down for us.
Thank you.